Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Jo and thank you so much for joining me here today. For today's video, we are going to be doing a wrap up of all the books that I read in the month of January, as well as picking my TBR for the month of February. I put together a little TBR jar here. I'm really excited. I've never done anything like this before. I have my TBR cart in front of me here, as well as a list of all of my Kindle reads on my laptop here. So we can choose from either or to create my list for February. And before I get into the video, I just launched a book club over on FABLE. So if you guys aren't following me over on FABLE, or you would like to join my book club on FABLE, I'll put the link down below. For book club this month, we are going to be reading Blue Sisters by Coco Mellers. I'm really excited to get into this. I've heard nothing but good things, and I think this is a really good book to discuss with other people. So if you're interested in joining my book club and reading this along with myself and everybody else in the community, then head down to the link in the description below to join that. So without further ado, let's get into all of my reads from January. So in January, I read a total of 10 books, which is crazy. So I am right on track to hitting my 100 book reading goal for the year. I had a lot of time to read this month. It was kind of a slow month for school and getting back into the groove of things. I just had a lot of extra free time on my hands, so that was really awesome. The first book that I finished this year was Empire of Storms by Sarah J. Maas. This is part of the Throne of Glass series. I really enjoyed this one. I decided to not tandem read it with Tower of Dawn, so I am just about to hit the midway point of Tower of Dawn right now. One of the reasons that I decided to not tandem read them was because I'm reading them on my Kindle. It's kind of complicated to flip back and forth between the chapters between the two books because I bought the bundle deal on Kindle. And also I kept hearing arguments on both sides as to whether to tandem read these two books or not, and I decided to just trust Sarah's pacing and to trust the order in which to read the books, because I wish I had read Assassin's Blade at a different point than I had decided to. And over on FABLE, I rated this 5 stars. I really enjoyed this one a lot. It had a good mix of everything that I wanted going into the tail end of this series, and it had so many different characters, so many different plot points happening and plot points merging, and so much action. And this one just really hit everything. I think it's one of the ones that I've enjoyed the most out of the Throne of Glass series, so I really like that one. The second book that I finished this year was Do You Remember by Frida McFadden. I really liked this one. I rated this one a 4 stars. I was pleasantly surprised by this one. I've kind of gone, I used to not like Frida's writing when I first started reading it. I've started going into her reads now with the expectation that it's going to be a little unrealistic and the characters might be a little bit annoying or make annoying decisions at times, and because I sort of go into Frida's books a little less seriously now, I've been enjoying them more. And the storyline of this one was really fascinating to me. I liked how they had the present timeline with glimpses into the past. Essentially, this woman wakes up every single day and doesn't remember what happened to her, other than she's waking up in a home with a man that she doesn't know who claims to be her husband, and every single day she tries to remember a little bit more, or she finds tidbits and crumbs of information about what her life actually was like before she forgets everything every single day, and her trying to work through what her life is now. And there's a lot of plot twists. I really like this one. This is one of the ones that I think is really underrated from Frida that I really enjoyed. The next book that I read in January was A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. I gave this 5 stars because this book was so good. It is a YA mystery, and wow, I really enjoyed this book. I think I sat and read it in one sitting. It was so entertaining. And the plot twists and the relationships and the character development, everything through this whole book through and through was so incredibly well done. I immediately went on Netflix, binge watched the TV show right after, and it did an equally great job capturing the story and the characters in the show. So I highly recommend reading the book and also watching the show. I really loved this. And then I was Still in the mood for mystery, obviously, because I read Killers of a Certain Age by Deanna Raybourn. I rated this a 3.5 stars. I enjoyed this book, but it definitely wasn't up there. It's about a group of women who are assassins and they work for this company, and they are now retired, they're elderly, and they are on their retirement trip to celebrate them retiring, and it seems as though the company that they work for is now coming after them and they don't know why. So they're trying to figure out what's going on. There's a lot of high stakes in this one, a lot of really interesting characters. I love seeing the dynamic between these women and between the other people in their lives that don't know they're assassins. It's really fascinating, and this one was like a fun read. I just didn't love the writing style as much as I've liked some other books, so this one was definitely a really interesting read and I recommend it, but it wasn't one of my faves. Next, we get into 3 books that I read in my previous video. So if you want more in-depth reviews and in-depth reactions to the next 3 books I'm about to talk about, then I recommend checking out my blind dates with books video. The first one that I read was The Ruins by Scott Smith. I rated this 3.5 stars. It was a horror. I've never read a book like this. It is not typically a genre that I read, and I found this book really highly entertaining for what it was. I really enjoyed it. I would recommend it if you're interested in kind of breaking into the horror genre. The only thing I would say is, like, read some trigger warnings on this one. There's definitely a lot of gore in this, which I don't typically enjoy reading in books, so that was definitely a bit of a turnoff for me, which is why it's rated a little bit lower than I might have. But overall, I really enjoyed this one. It was really interesting. It had me hooked. I couldn't put it down once I started it. The next book that I read was Under the Whispering Door by T.J. Klune, and I gave this a 4.5 stars. I've had a really solid reading month and start to the year with my rating so far. This book is so good. I cannot wait to read more by this author. I really enjoyed the characters, the character development, which is the main focus of this entire book. I liked the exploration of afterlife and it not being specifically tied to any one belief or like religion. It sort of kept it generalized so that anybody from any background or any belief system could relate to what is going on in this book and the way that the afterlife is described and worked through by the main character. I loved this one. The next one I read is The Dilemma by B.A. Paris. This was another new author to me, and I rated this one 4 stars. I really enjoyed this one. It is a thriller, and it's about a family. Everything's sort of centering around the daughter in this family and the dynamics between each family member, the dynamics of them with family friends and an extended family. It was a really interesting read, definitely kept me on my toes. It's a dual point of view with the mother and the father in the family, and I found this one really exciting. I had a hard time putting this one down, and I'm excited to read more from this author. The next book that I read was The Glass Woman by Caroline Leah. I picked this up at a secondhand bookshop and it sounded really interesting on the back. It's about this woman in this village in Iceland way back in time, and she gets married off to this man that she believes will help take care of her sick and dying mother and her village that she comes from. So she moves in with this man, and there are a lot of weird things that start to happen, a lot of things that kind of dip their toes into fantasy but not quite, and she's trying to figure out what happened to his previous wife who mysteriously died, and a lot of people in the village that he's from talk about it, and there's a lot of whispering and stuff. I rated this one 3.75. I really enjoyed it. It was really fascinating read. It wasn't anything crazy that I absolutely loved, but it was definitely a really good read that I recommend. Next, I read Onyx Storm by Rebecca Yarros. I read this in 2 days, which is crazy. Everyone kept telling me to savor it. Y'all should know me by now. I'm an absolutely feral book reader. I cannot, once I start reading a book that I love, put it down. This was a 5-star read for me. I do not want to give any spoilers because I try to keep my videos as spoiler-free as possible. But wow, this was it. It was definitely a redemption from Iron Flame, that's for sure. I didn't hate Iron Flame. I think Iron Flame gets a lot of hate, and I don't think that it should. But Onyx Storm really hit the nail on the head. I have more questions than answers going into this book, which is totally fine, but I'm really fascinated to see what happens next in the series. I'm really excited to see what Rebecca does with it. I've been loving seeing all of the book theories on Book Talk about this one, so if anyone wants to talk Onyx Storm theories, hit me up in my DMs because I would talk about that all day long. It's It's such a good book. Last but not least, the last book in January that I read was The Crash by Frida McFadden. I read this in one day, the day that it came out, because again, I can't be stopped. I really enjoyed this one. This was one of Frida's better books, I think, and it's about a pregnant woman who gets into a car accident and gets rescued or saved by this man and his wife, and she finds herself stuck in their house now because of the snowstorm, and there's some weird things going on. Her life is really complicated, and I found this one to be really good. The plot twists are very plot twisty in this one. I did not see anything coming of what ended up happening through this story, so I really enjoyed it. I would definitely look up trigger warnings on this one though, because there is pregnancy involved in it, so please look up some trigger warnings if that is a topic that you would find triggering, because it could be difficult for some people to read. So read the trigger warnings on that one, but I loved it. Okay, let's move on to the TBR portion of this video, which I am so excited for. So let's get going with the jar here. I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pull 6 prompts out of this jar. I read 10 books this month, and I want some wiggle room for some mood reading or some other books that I might end up picking up throughout the month. I know I'm going to be reading this for my book club this month, so I want to give myself some books that I want to try to get to, but then also leave myself a little bit of wiggle room for the month. So I think we're gonna pick 6 prompts out of here. So let's see what the first one is. A book from your favorite genre. Okay, this is fun. My favorite genre is obviously fantasy, so there are quite a few books that I could pull for this one. Most of my TBR is fantasy, so I could pick anything from my TBR if we're being honest. I think I'm gonna pick 5 Broken Blades by May Corland. This I got in a book of the month box, and I haven't read it yet, and I'm really excited to. This book is about 5 of the most dangerous liars in the land who have been mysteriously summoned to work together for a single objective: to kill the god King June. He has it coming. Under his merciless mortal hand, the nobles flourish while the poor and innocent are imprisoned, ruined, or sold. And now each of the 5 blades will come for him. Each has tasted bitterness, from the hired hitman seeking atonement to a lovely assassin who seeks freedom, or even the prince banished for his cruel crimes. None can resist the sweet, icy lure of vengeance, and they can agree on murder. They can agree on treachery, but for these 5 killers, each versed in deception, lies, and betrayal, it's not enough to forge an alliance. To survive, they'll have to find a way to trust each other, but only one can take the crown. Let the best liar win. So this one sounds really interesting. I'm really excited to add this to my TBR for February. Next prompt. The lowest rated book on the TBR. I just did the lowest rated book on my TBR for my physical TBR because my Kindle TBR is extremely long. And the lowest rated book, which is rated at 3.5 stars, is the Book of Elsewhere, which is by Keanu Reeves and China Miéville. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. I got this book for Christmas from my brother, which was really nice of him. I've had my eye on this one for a little while now, and I'm excited to read it. I'm not apprehensive about the rating at all, because there have been some like lower rated books on FABLE that I've ended up really enjoying, and vice versa. So the rating doesn't scare me on this one. I really like Keanu Reeves' work as an actor, so I'm really excited to check out his writing. So this is the second book on our TBR. I'm gonna read the description from the Book of Elsewhere. There have always been whispers, legends, a warrior that cannot be killed, who's seen 1,000 civilizations rise and fall. He has had many names. These days he's simply known as B, and he wants to be able to die. In the present day, a US Black Ops group has promised him that they can help with that. All he needs to do is help them in return. But when an all-too mortal soldier comes back to life, the impossible event ultimately points towards a force even more mysterious than B himself. One at least as strong, and one with a plan all its own. In a collaboration that combines Miéville's singular style and creativity with Reeves's haunting and soul-stirring narrative, these 2 artists have created something utterly unique, sure to delight existing fans and create scores of new ones. So I'm excited for that. Okay, next prompt. A book your best friend picks. and I will let you guys know when she responds to that. That's 3 so far. We have 3 more to go. Let's pick our next one. An author you've never read. Let's see what we've got here. There's a lot of authors on my list that I've never read from before. I think though, because this has been on my TBR for so long and I've never read anything by her, I think I'm gonna add Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. I'm in a big fantasy mood. I think just because it's wintertime, and I am really excited to read this one. After centuries of sleep, the gods are warring again, but 18-year-old Iris Winnow just wants to hold her family together. Her mother is suffering from addiction. Her brother is missing from the front lines. Her best bet is to win the columnist promotion at the Oath Gazette. To combat her worries, Iris writes letters to her brother and slips them beneath her wardrobe door, where they vanish into the hands of Roman Kit, her cold and handsome rival at the paper. When he anonymously writes Iris back, the two of them forge a connection that will follow Iris all the way to the front lines of battle for her brother, the fate of mankind, and love. Divine Rivals is an epic enemies to lovers fantasy with hope, heartbreak, and the unparalleled power of love. This is obviously a well-loved book here on BookTube and well talked about, so I'm excited to pick that one up. Okay, my next read. Let's see. A book on Kindle Unlimited. Perfect. A lot of my books from my Kindle TBR are from Kindle Unlimited. I think one of the ones that I've had on there for a while that I really would love to get to is Court This Cruel and Lovely by Stacia Stark. That's one that I've had my eye on Kindle Unlimited for a little while now, and I've heard really good things about it. Emmy talks about it, and I always trust Emmy's opinion on fantasy reads, so I'm going to add that one from Kindle Unlimited to my TBR. That leaves us with one more prompt from the jar for the TBR. Let's see here. A book with red on the cover. Well, that's an easy pick. This book has a lot of red on the cover, which 5 Broken Blades does as well, so that would have worked for this prompt. I have Good Girl, Bad Blood by Holly Jackson, which is the 2nd book in the Good Girl's Guide to Murder series. I am really excited to pick this one up. I think this one is about Pip being a true crime podcaster after she starts to go to school, I believe. So I think it's her and Ravi that start up a true crime podcast. So I'm really excited for this one. I'm excited to dive back into this world with these characters. I'm interested to see what the mystery that takes place in this one. Excited to see where this goes. It's now the next day. Bestie got back to me and she chose The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I've never read anything from Taylor Jenkins Reid, but I've heard nothing but incredible things about her writing, and I know this is a very beloved book amongst people. I am really excited to dive into this one. I know I am interested in this author's writing style, so I'm really excited that this is the one that my bestie picked for me, and I'm hoping to get to this month. So let's rapid fire do a quick recap of all the books on my TBR for the month of February. So we have 5 Broken Blades by Mai Corlin, Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross, The Book of Elsewhere by Keanu Reeves and China Mieville, Good Girl, Bad Blood by Holly Jackson, Court This Cruel and Lovely by Stacia Stark, The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. These are all the books that are on my February TBR. I'm really excited to see what I get read this month. I have a lot of plans to do a lot of reading. I have a trip booked this month as well, which means that I get lots of reading done in the airport and up in the air time, and just usually on vacation when I'm away I get a good chunk of reading done. So we have a lot of opportunity to get all of these books done, and I'm really looking forward to it. Thank you so much for joining me today in wrapping up all the books I read in January and helping me pick out my TBR in February. Don't forget that my FABLE book club just launched, so if you want to come join and be a part of that and to read Blue Sisters along with me and the rest of the people joining the book club, then come on over to FABLE. I'll leave a link for it down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you all next week.